Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a close look at a stack of fascinating notes and reports from an IT journalist really digging into the Chinese home appliance market.
Yeah, it might seem like a pretty standard topic,
Yeah,
refrigerators, washing machines, TVs, that sort of stuff. But this market is absolutely massive and undergoing some seriously rapid changes.
exactly. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the latest trends fueling growth here, understand what makes this market tick right now, and importantly, see how it stacks up against other markets, especially Japan, which our source spends quite a bit of time comparing it to.
Right, and you'll see how resilient it's been and how technology isn't just adding bells and whistles, but fundamentally changing how people interact with the stuff in their homes. It's genuinely reshaping familiar items in some pretty unexpected ways.
Okay, let's get into it then. Our sources start by setting the scene, showing that the Chinese home appliance market definitely felt the pain in 2020, largely because of the pandemic,
Oh,
obviously,
for sure. People just weren't visiting physical stores.
especially for those bigger, more expensive items, right? The things they wanted to check out in person.
Exactly. Though interestingly, some categories saw a spike. Air purifiers, for instance, had a special demand, linked to health concerns during that period.
Ah, okay.
But overall, yeah, store traffic dropped and the market took a hit.
But here's where the turnaround really shines. The first half of 2021 saw this huge comeback.
Huge.
Most product categories didn't just recover their 2020 sales. Many actually surpassed their sales levels from pre-pandemic 2019.
Yeah, things like refrigerators, washing machines, cooking appliances, living appliances, all bounced back really strong.
TVs and air conditioners, according to the reports, didn't quite hit those 2019 numbers again in that period, but they still showed significant recovery from the 2020 dip.
It was a very clear signal that the market wasn't just, surviving, it was aggressively growing again.
And the sheer scale is staggering. The market size for just the first half of 2021 was 429.3 billion yuan.
Which is roughly 7.3 trillion Japanese yen. Just to put that in perspective for you, that's about half of Japan's entire annual appliance market
In just 6 months.
in 6 months. Yeah. And given China's population and growing economy, the reports highlight that there's still immense growth potential, particularly when you look beyond the major cities into the rural areas.
So, what's powering this robust recovery and well, continued expansion? Our sources pinpoint three key trends that are really driving things.
Yeah, they're identified as, first, this strong move towards smartification, high value-added products, and overall premiumization.
Okay.
Second, a clear differentiation happening between online, e-commerce, and physical retail sales channels.
Right.
And third, significant expansion into those rural markets we just touched on, largely enabled by e-commerce.
It sounds like that first trend, smartification, is almost inseparable from premiumization now.
Totally.
The reports mention that smart features, like being able to connect your appliance to your phone via Bluetooth, that's not just an optional extra anymore.
No, it's becoming pretty standard on the higher grade products. Smart capabilities are essentially synonymous with high value added features, and that push towards premium goods.
So people aren't just paying more for, say, a stainless steel finish. They're paying for the tech inside.
Exactly. And this focus on smart features has actually driven the average price of appliances up by over 10% across the board. It's moving the market away from being purely about the lowest price point.
Okay, let's talk about those sales channels then. The source material indicates e-commerce penetration is really high, over 50%.
Yeah, Beasley.
But physical stores are definitely holding their own. How are they managing that in such a digital marketplace?
Well, physical retail spaces have had to dramatically change their strategy. The old model, just stacking boxes of low to mid-range products,
Yeah.
that's fading away.
You mean like the old warehouse style big box stores?
Precisely. Instead, stores are transforming into these curated showroom spaces.
Oh, okay.
Their focus has shifted almost entirely to showcasing high-end appliances.
And why the big shift towards premium in the physical stores? What's the thinking there?
Well, think about it. For lower-end products, consumers can stand in a store, easily compare prices on their smartphone.
Yeah, find a better deal online in seconds?
Exactly. And physical stores have minimal margin on those products anyway. Why tie up floor space?
Right, especially when someone's likely just going to buy it on JD.com or Pinduoduo later.
Right. High-end appliances are different. They offer much better margins for retailers.
Makes sense.
Plus, they often lead to sales of profitable add-ons, specialized cables, filters, maybe installation services.
Okay.
But the biggest factor is probably the consumer experience.
Mm-hmm.
People buying expensive items, they want to see them, feel them, understand the complex features, and get personalized advice.
So the staff in these stores are becoming less like cashiers and more like appliance concierges. Is that a fair way to put it?
That's a great way to put it, yeah. They're guides helping you navigate the features of a significant purchase. That combination of physical interaction with the product and expert human assistance. That's what's keeping brick and mortar relevant for the premium segment.
Interesting. And alongside that, you mentioned the substantial growth happening in rural markets, referred to in the source as dana, or sinking markets.
Yeah, the Saiget Shikding. E-commerce platforms like JD.com and Pinduoduo have invested really heavily in logistics and reach into these areas over the past few years.
So getting goods there is easier now.
Much easier. And this improved access coincides with a significant increase in disposable income in rural China. The reports cite national statistics showing rural disposable income grew by a remarkable 14.1% in the first half of 2021.
14%. Wow. Compared to what for urban areas?
Just 3.4% for urban residents in the same period.
Okay, that's a huge boost in purchasing power in those regions then.
It absolutely is. So the market is effectively growing on two wheels simultaneously, as the source puts
It's
it.
two wheels.
Yeah, you have the premium smart segment thriving in urban areas,
Yeah.
often experienced through these high-end physical showrooms,
Right.
and then parallel growth in rural areas, primarily for more standard products, fueled by increased access via e-commerce and those rising incomes.
Got it. Okay, let's drill down into what kind of features and trends are actually making these appliances so desirable. Our sources really highlight health as a massive driver.
Yes, the focus on health features is incredibly prominent. Sometimes, the claims or features might strike you as perhaps a little overly cautious, but it's clearly what consumers are demanding and willing to pay for.
Like what kind of features are we talking about?
We'll take air conditioners, for example. It's gone far beyond just cooling or heating. We're talking about built-in sterilization, advanced dust removal systems, self-cleaning coils,
Self-cleaning.
air purification functions, bringing in fresh air through filters, and even sensor-based systems that detect people to avoid blowing wind directly on them.
So it's not just climate control, it's perceived air quality and like comfort management for health.
Exactly that. Washing machines are another big one. They commonly feature sterilization cycles.
Right.
And the drying function is particularly popular, especially in premium drum-type machines. The source even points out how some advertising implies machine drying is somehow healthier than sun drying,
Healthier than the sun. Really?
which might be, a clever marketing angle linked perhaps to the reality of limited balcony space in many urban apartments.
That's a fascinating link between living conditions and perceived health benefits driving feature demand. What about something like TVs? How does health play in there?
Well, 8K resolution and OLED displays are becoming standard premium features. And the source notes there are claims potentially needing scientific verification. They point out that OLED displays are easier on the eyes than LCD because they're self-illuminating.
The eye comfort angle.
Exactly. It fits right into that broader health narrative.
So health isn't just about germs or air quality. It extends to things like visual comfort, too.
Right. And then, of course, there are appliances specifically focused on wellness or personal care. They're seeing strong sales. Air purifier. We mentioned foot bath devices, massage guns, that kind of thing.
And the pandemic just accelerated all this.
It certainly accelerated it, but the trend was already well underway.
Okay, so health is huge. What about pet appliances? That sounds kind of niche.
It is smaller, yes,
Yeah.
but definitely a rapidly growing category. This trend is driven by the increasing number of people keeping indoor pets in cities.
Right, more city dwellers with pets.
And typically, these pet owners are pretty digitally savvy and have the means to invest in their pets' comfort and care.
What sort of things are popular then? Automatic feeders.
Automatic feeders are the most common, dispensing food on a schedule, but you also see increasingly sophisticated tech.
Right.
The Sharp Pet Care Monitor is mentioned as a notable example. It's basically a cat toilet.
A smart cat toilet.
Yeah, that measures the cat's weight, its urine volume and frequency, and sends all that data right to a smartphone app.
To monitor the cat's health based on its bathroom habits. That's incredibly specific.
Yes, exactly, for health monitoring. And the source highlights that while the Sharp one is a specific product, the concept using technology to monitor pet health and well-being via an appliance is something other manufacturers are now exploring and bringing to market too.
That's a really insightful look at how lifestyle changes are directly impacting appliance design. Now, you touched on smart features earlier, but the source makes a really core point about a fundamental difference in the philosophy behind smartification between China and say, Japan.
Yes, and this distinction is really central to understanding the market. Historically, appliance innovation in places like Japan focused on refining the basic performance.
Making it better at its core job.
Exactly. How can a refrigerator keep food fresher for longer with more precise temperature control? How can a washing machine get clothes cleaner or use less water, improving the core function?
Right.
In China, the driving force with smart features seems to be more about enhancing the user experience.
Okay, explain that difference.
Well, putting cameras inside a fridge to recognize food and send a list to your phone, that's not about making the fridge perform better at cooling, is it?
No, it's about making shopping easier.
Exactly. It's about making your grocery shopping experience easier by integrating the fridge into that task via your smartphone. This shift in focus, this focus on the experience, is really significant.
Let's look at some concrete examples of this user experience focused smartification. Smart TVs are a prime case, I imagine.
Absolutely. The source notes the fundamental shift in how TVs are used. They're evolving from just being receivers for broadcast signals to being large indoor displays.
Especially for younger generations, right? They use their phones for video anyway.
Exactly. They don't necessarily see traditional TV channels as the main event. Yeah. And it's interesting how smartphone makers are becoming major players in the TV market there.
Yeah, Xiaomi, Huawei, Oppo, Honor.
Well, significant TV brands now.
Yeah.
It reflects this perception that the device is less a dedicated television and more a large smart display within a connected ecosystem.
Xiaomi's approach is highlighted, right? How do they embody this philosophy?
Well, Xiaomi leveraged their expertise in making thin smartphones to create incredibly thin TV designs. A specific model from 2018 was only like 11.4 millimeter thick.
That's super thin.
Which made it much easier for a user to mount it on the wall themselves, maybe without needing a professional installation service.
And the source mentioned their own installation service was incredibly cheap anyway, like 190 yuan.
Yeah, about 3,200 Japanese yen, which is remarkably low for a mounting service. But perhaps the most impactful feature is their voice assistant, Tongshu, which is deeply integrated across their product range, including the TVs.
So you can turn it on by voice, obviously, change channels.
Oh, much more than that. You get really granular control. Things like turn on the TV at 7 a.m., set a sleep timer for 30 minutes, fast forward exactly 30 seconds, rewind 5 minutes, skip to 32 minutes and 12 seconds.
That precise. Wow.
That precise voice command control fundamentally changes how you interact with the TV compared to just fumbling with a remote. It's all about simplifying and enhancing the user's interaction.
And the remote itself is simplified intentionally.
Yes, very minimal buttons,
Yeah.
much like you see on modern streaming box remotes. And the interface isn't built around a traditional channel guide.
Oh.
It uses something called a patch wall home screen that prioritizes recommended streaming content and archives based on your viewing habits. You select content visually from curated panels rather than navigating a grid of live channels.
So broadcast TV is still there, but it's not front and center.
Exactly. It's accessible, but it's not the default centerpiece of the experience anymore.
Okay, let's move to refrigerators, another area seeing significant change you mentioned.
Yeah, the demand is for large premium models, often 500 liters or more. Though it's interesting, the source notes that single individuals, maybe surprisingly, might need less fridge space now.
Because of food delivery.
Exactly. The massive popularity of food delivery and also meal kits.
Yeah.
If you're ordering in or getting pre-portioned meal kits, you just don't need giant crisper drawers full of produce, do you?
Makes sense. Less food storage needed day to day.
Right. And smart features are gaining traction here too. The JD.com and Medea camera fridge is a perfect example from the reports.
Okay, the one with cameras inside. That still sounds a bit sci-fi. How does it actually work?
It has cameras built in, yeah. They take photos every time the door is opened and closed.
Yeah.
Then image recognition software analyzes these photos to identify what's inside. The accuracy is around 90%, apparently better with packaged goods.
So it actually knows what food items are in there, like it can tell milk from juice.
Generally, yes. And it compiles a list and shows you the photos on a smartphone app.
Ah, so when you're at the store.
Exactly. You're out shopping and can't remember if you have enough eggs or need more milk, you just check the app.
That is genuinely practical.
And you can even order missing items directly through the integrated JD.com app, right from the fridge interface or the phone app.
Okay, that's integrating the appliance into the shopping routine. Does it offer other features?
It does. Based on the food it detects, it can suggest recipes, and it can also give you expiry warnings based on how long items have been in the fridge.
That's clever.
Again, it's about using technology to transform the fridge from just a passive cooler into a proactive food management assistant. It changes the whole experience around drug storage and shopping.
That's a really clear example. What about kitchen essentials, like, say, rice cookers?
The Xiaomi Mi Home rice cooker is highlighted as another great illustration of this design philosophy. And notably, it's even sold in Japan now.
Okay. What's special about it?
It features a super minimalist design, one main button, maybe a couple of smaller ones, and a hidden display that only lights up when needed.
So when it's off, it just looks like a sleek white box.
Pretty much, yeah. This aligns with a strong trend in China towards integrating kitchens more seamlessly into living and dining areas.
Open plan living.
Exactly. Apartments are increasingly designed with open-plan layouts, so appliances are constantly visible. Minimalist, unobtrusive designs are preferred because they just blend into the living space better.
But rice cookers, especially for Asian cuisines, can have really complex functions, right? Different rice types, textures, even cooking other dishes like soups.
Yeah.
How do you control all that with just a couple of buttons?
That's where the smartphone app takes over completely.
Okay.
All the detailed cooking functions, different modes for specific types of rice, settings for dishes like samgyetang, it's all managed through the app on your phone. You select the recipe or function there, and it sends the precise instructions to the cooker.
So it's less a traditional appliance with physical controls and more an IH cooking device controlled remotely.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
And the source brings up a fascinating detail about the development of that particular rice cooker involving a former Sanyo engineer.
Yes, Naito Takeshi. He was responsible for Sanyo's very successful Odorodaki Dancing Boil IH rice cookers back in the day. Xiaomi hired him, and his observation was that Xiaomi, and perhaps China more broadly, had an even stricter focus on design and operability than he'd experienced in Japan.
He mentioned a hierarchy, didn't he? Performance, then operability, then design.
Exactly that order. Performance, operability, design. It shows a very deliberate emphasis on how the product is used and integrated into life, right alongside its core function and its appearance.
This brings us nicely to the comparison with the Japanese market, which our source uses to draw some broader lessons.
Yeah, it's a really interesting contrast. Japan has this long history of innovation in appliances built during its period of high economic growth.
For sure.
Back then, the competition often centered on adding more and more features. This rice cooker cooks plain rice. This one also does brown rice. This one does porridge and sushi rice.
And the way they showed off those features was by putting a button for every single one on the appliance itself.
Right. Precisely. Think of older Japanese microwave panels. They were practically airplane cockpits. Specific buttons for defrosting specific types of meat, warming milk, steaming vegetables.
I remember those.
This approach worked well back then because consumers often made purchasing decisions in stores, comparing products side by side, getting explanations from staff about each feature button.
So why is that approach now seen as maybe hindering innovation in Japan?
Well, the Japanese market is mature now. It's no longer a high-growth market. It relies mainly on replacement demand, consumers replacing old appliances every 5 or 10 years.
Okay.
And consumers tend to buy models similar to what they're replacing because they're comfortable with the interface. The source points to a kind of lack of courage to change in a shrinking or stagnant market.
Taking bold risks feels much scarier when the overall market isn't growing to absorb potential missteps, I guess.
Exactly right. And the premium market in Japan is disproportionately influenced by older demographics who are often more comfortable with those traditional button-heavy interfaces they've used for decades.
They know how it works.
They know how it works. They trust it. The source notes that even smart Japanese TVs often default to showing the traditional terrestrial broadcast screen when turned on, despite user habits clearly shifting towards streaming. They add smart features, but they don't fundamentally change the user flow or the core experience in the same way.
So the market's mature, the dominant approach is quite conservative. Contrast that with China's growth market dynamic.
Well, in a growth market, the potential upside from a successful innovation is just huge. So companies are naturally more willing to take risks.
Makes sense. Bigger rewards justify bigger risks.
Right. If a new feature or product doesn't land perfectly, the overall market expansion can cushion the impact, and they can learn and iterate really quickly. The source also observes that even if an appliance company fails in China, the talent and technology are often acquired by larger firms.
So it's not necessarily the end of the road.
Which lessens the fear of total business collapse for entrepreneurs and innovators. It changes the whole risk calculation.
So Given this situation in Japan, what potential does the source see for innovation within that industry? Are they stuck?
Not necessarily. They point to the success of smaller, independent Japanese brands like Belmuda.
Ah, yes, Balmuda. They make some beautiful stuff.
Exactly. Mentioning their oven range, and especially their steam toaster as examples, these smaller companies have successfully entered the market by focusing on design, user experience, and a simplified premium offering.
And they've made waves, haven't they?
They have. They've managed to prompt larger Japanese companies to notice and adapt, at least to some extent.
So these smaller players can act as disruptors and really push the larger, more conservative companies.
That's the idea, yeah. The suggestion from the source is that larger Japanese companies could foster this kind of innovation internally, maybe through dedicated sub-brands or independent subsidiaries, or by investing in smaller, agile firms, using them as kind of laboratories for new ideas that could then influence the broader industry.
Interesting strategy. So, boiling it down, what's the key lesson that our source really wants us to take away from observing China's appliance market evolution?
It comes back to that core philosophical difference we talked about. The focus should be on using technology to fundamentally change and improve the user experience,
Not just the specs.
rather than just making incremental improvements to basic performance. The source frames learning from China not as negative copying, but as drawing valuable inspiration. Just as Japan learned from the US in the post-war period, and China learned from Japan in the 2000s.
It's a two-way street of learning, isn't it? China is still studying Japan, absolutely, but Japan should certainly be open to learning from China's rapid innovation cycles and this user-centric approach.
Absolutely. The global market is a dynamic classroom. Everyone can learn from everyone else.
And for anyone listening who wants to see more examples of this user experience-focused design philosophy in action, the source even suggests a resource.
Yes. The Xiaomi Yupin e-commerce site is mentioned. Even if you don't read Chinese, just browsing the product photos can be really illustrative
Illustrative of what kind of things?
of the types of innovative, user-centric gadgets and appliances being developed and sold, things you might not even expect.
Like what? Give us an example.
Okay, for instance, a wireless ear pick.
A what now?
An ear pick
Yeah.
with a built-in camera that connects to your phone, allowing you to literally see inside your ear canal while you're cleaning it.
No way.
Yeah. And it even has orientation stabilization, so the image doesn't flip around as you move the device.
A smart ear pick with image stabilization? That's certainly specific.
Yeah.
And user experience focused, I guess.
Or how about a smart trash can? It automatically senses when someone approaches to open the lid. And when the bag inside is full, it automatically heat seals the bag shut
Seals the bag.
and then replaces it with a new one from a roll stored inside the can. You never have to touch the garbage bag directly.
Wow. Okay, those are definitely focused on reimagining the experience of performing a mundane task. That really drives home the point about the user-centric design.
They offer some great tangible examples of how technology can be applied to rethink even the most basic objects in our daily lives, moving beyond just core function.
So, to bring this deep dive to a close, what are the main takeaways you hope listeners will remember from all this?
Well, I think we've seen how the Chinese appliance market has shown this incredible recovery, really driven by that strong push towards smartification, the big influence of health and even pet trends, and the clever evolution of sales channels reaching both urban premium buyers and those growing rural markets.
And crucially, that fundamental difference in approach to smart technology.
Exactly. Prioritizing the enhancement of the user experience over just tweaking the basic appliance performance.
And these trends really highlight how incredibly fast technology is changing the devices right inside our homes, doesn't it? And consequently, our daily interactions with them.
Yeah, whether it's how we discover and buy a new fridge, how a washing machine caters to our health concerns, or how a TV or rice cooker simplifies complex tasks through voice commands or smartphone apps.
It paints a picture of a market that's not just building better boxes, but building connected, experience-enhancing tools for living.
Well put.
It really does. So here's a thought to leave you all with. How does the story of the appliance market in China, with its rapid, risk-taking innovation fueled by growth, contrast with the more cautious, performance-focused approach we see in a mature market like Japan's? And what does that tell us more broadly about how different market dynamics, growth versus maturity, influence the willingness of entire industries to fundamentally rethink even the most familiar products that we use every single day?
It really makes you wonder what everyday object will be the next to be completely transformed by that kind of thinking.